Welcome back, everyone, and picking up where we've left off, which is with Dr. John Coleman, who definitely had a lot of contacts within the intelligence agencies. This is stuff that has come true over the decades since recording this back in 1994 when I was a young man. Um, I was out of the Army and in college, and I didn't know anything about what this man was talking about. This should have been in every classroom, in front of everybody, all the time. It lets you know how much our media, our politicians, our books, everything in the West was controlled by a very shrewd enemy.
What does socialism do? It forces changes upon people that they do not want and do not ask for. And we've seen how dangerous that is when we look at the programs that were supposedly programs invented by the United States government and by the presidents. A man called Stuart Chase, an arch-Fabian socialist, wrote a book called A New Deal. Frances Perkins, who was the first female socialist cabinet minister appointed in the United States in the Roosevelt administration, she got hold of a copy of this book and she ran to Roosevelt and said, look, this would be a marvelous program for you. So in the 1932 and by the way, don't call them the Democratic Party because they are not. We are a confederated republic. We are a constitutional republic. In a confederated constitutional republic, you cannot have a Democratic Party. You can have a Democrat Party, and that's what we should start calling them. But she ran up, and Roosevelt was so enamored with this deal that in 1932 they hastily changed their platform, and he came out and announced his New Deal, which is a verbatim, word-for-word program taken from Stuart Chase's book, Socialism, A New Deal. Then when Kennedy came along, he adopted as a wonderful new program called the New Frontier.
Now this makes a lot of people question stuff of, oh, hold on a second. My mic is not synced up and on. Bear with me a second. We'll listen to this a little bit longer.
Just happened to be a book written by Henry Wallace, another Fabian socialist writer. Word for word, the New Frontier was co-opted as Kennedy's program. Then when Johnson came along, he came out and started talking about the Great Society. Now, what was the Great Society program? It was another Fabian socialist book written by another fellow called Graham Wallace, no relation to the first Wallace, name spelled differently. So here we have three presidents of the United States following an outright course of socializing the United States of America. And of course, every president, including Reagan and Bush, has continued along those lines. And what do we have? Our Social Security. That was called the...
Now we have to understand the impact, and sorry about that, my microphone was off earlier. We have to understand the impact that the Fabian Society has had both on Great Britain and the West, especially the United States of America and Canada. This has been a group that has moved slowly and purposefully over many decades with the same intent. So we have the Freemasons, the Fabians, the Club of Rome, the Council on Foreign Relations, CFR, the Trilateral Commissions. All of these entities are all tentacles of the same creature. And all of these, please note that these are all coming from Europe. These are all coming from Europe, and there's going to be influences from Eastern Europe to impact us that Dr. Coleman is not talking about, but is still part of and parcel of what was impacting the United States and the West all at once. And a lot of this has to do with our current war within Israel and Iran. This is a rewriting of what the Committee of 300 has done to us. Hopefully. Still early days.
Beveridge plan. In 1942, when Britain had its back to the wall, was losing hands down to the German armies in France, they needed something to buck up the population. So Sir William Beveridge came along with this plan. He said, we're going to abolish poverty in Great Britain. And they started this Beveridge plan, which is the basis of our socialist social security plan. Note, I said socialist social security plan. That's how we got it. It was co-opted directly from the Beveridge plan, very eagerly embraced by Roosevelt. Socialism is a failure. Lenin was once asked, what is socialism? And he said, socialism, he said, no, sorry, I got the story wrong. He was asked, what is communism? And he said, communism is socialism in a hurry. And we have creeping socialism in this country today, which has nowhere to go but to communism. In the New World Order, one world government. That is the direction that William Jefferson Clinton is pushing this country as hard as he can go. And GATT is an integral part of that. The socialist policies of England failed miserably. They got the great Professor Harold Lasky of the London School of Economics. I once was asked to give a talk there, and it was me against 600 hostile left-wing students. And I had a pretty torrid time of it to start with, but in the end I did get a very good hearing from them. But that same Professor Lasky was sent to the United States to see how the Constitution could be got around. And he said, there's one good way we have to do it. We have to break down this provision that says there's no transfer of powers between the three branches. And we have that happening every day. We have Clinton calling himself the Commander-in-Chief, which he's not. I sent a fax to Colonel Oliver North the other day, in which I explained in detail what the Constitution has to say.
This is where the problem hits with what Dr. Coleman was doing. We know now that Oliver North was part of the problem. The military, which we thought was helping us, in fact, was against us. And that's the facts that Dr. Coleman was unaware. So sending a fax and trying to get a response positively from Ollie North was wasting time, energy, and function. And I'm struck by that. This was the only man really talking about this and taking these ideas forward. What else strikes me is that Rush Limbaugh never talked about this. Rush Limbaugh, the big purveyor of freedom and understanding what was America was up against, he was always Chi-coms, Russians, Chi-coms, and never talking about our real enemy, which was the Committee of 300 and the black nobility, the Council of 13. And that lets me know that, yes, Rush Limbaugh was completely a psyop and run by intelligence agencies. So that is just part of me growing up back in the States. And this guy had a thread of it, but he did not have the big picture, understanding how involved the military was in the fundamental destruction of America. And it's not the privates and sergeants and captains and lieutenants doing that actual work. We're getting up into the colonels, but especially the generals. Those are the people, when you get up into the general staff, you've had to do something, okay? That's part of a very, very elite club. Very elite club. And you don't just get into that club like it's often been told to us.
About the Commander-in-Chief. I hope he was able to use it. He said that Clinton is not the Commander-in-Chief, but he was saying it for the wrong reasons, for personal reasons. The Constitution is perfectly clear on this. It says that the President shall not be the Commander-in-Chief until such times as called into actual service by the Congress. And in my studies I came across this proviso that that could only happen after a careful 5-step declaration of war mandated by the Constitution. And that is the sum and substance of the President's war-making powers. Unfortunately for us, during the time of the Civil War, Lincoln got the Congress to give him the power of habeas corpus, which is a privilege, by the way, not a right. And he was able to do things that were monstrous, which would never have been done. Why Clinton is telling everybody he's the commander-in-chief, it's not out of ignorance, as I pointed out to Colonel North in my facts. It's a deliberate, carefully crafted plan to get the people of the United States used to the idea that he is actually the commander-in-chief. And I tell you, he is not. The Constitution says he is not. And I can give you chapter and verse. Because should there a time come when he wants to take some drastic kind of action, he can then get Congress controlled by the Democrats, even a lame duck Congress, to give him the power of suspension of habeas corpus, and can say, as Commander-in-Chief of the United States Armed Forces, I hereby order XYZ to happen. It is a deadly danger, and we are fast asleep. I tried to alert Colonel North to exactly what's going on about the so-called Commander-in-Chief, and I only hope that he will put it to good use, because
And like I just said, it was a waste of time and energy. This is how deep the deep state is, and deep state was. And Oliver North was closer to Epstein because Jeffrey Epstein was part of the money laundering operation that kept the Iran-Contra drug for arms racket going. Listen to how bad that was. Drugs for weapons that would become cash. All right? So the Contras were giving drugs to Ollie North, who was then giving those drugs to people to move those drugs, while he was in turn giving weapons and ammunition to these people to destroy and sow chaos into a system and keep the Central American and South American regions destabilized, as well as the Americas itself, the entire Americas itself. John Coleman was wasting his valuable time and efforts, and I feel so bad that he was a canary in the coal mine that no one paid attention to and should have, because our country was sold down the river by the military he was trusting. Again, listen to that, okay? Ollie North was receiving drugs which he freely distributed to people that would give him the money to buy the weapons to send to Central America. And it was never put to me like that. I just had to think about that for a little while and think, man, we should have been more up in arms about that. Everybody, unfortunately, loved Reagan, and they took advantage of they've taken advantage of America's goodness for too long.
I do not have the same forum that he does. Anyway, socialism is a total failure. When it began to sink in England, they sent John Maynard Keynes, or Keynes. He said Keynes was a better word because it rhymed with brains. And this is the man who did in the economy of every Western country. And he came to the United States, and by his charm and good looks, he was a tall, well-spoken English gentleman, immaculately suited, connoisseur of wines and cheeses. And it was said of him that there was not a single lady who could resist his amorous advances. He was able to charm Roosevelt into giving the British government $3 billion to prop up their socialist programs. That wasn't enough. They then sent Harold Lasky and John Maynard Keynes for a second handout. This time they got $7 billion, and And when Roosevelt was asked about this, he said, let's forget all of those silly little dollar signs. And the same thing is happening today in the field of foreign endeavor. We find a president giving away billions of dollars in foreign aid, which he is not entitled to do. I have searched the congressional records, the congressional globes, the annals of Congress, to find out if there is an empowerment for the federal government, our Congress, to dish out billions of dollars every year like a Santa Claus to foreign nations, and I could not find it anywhere. And where the Constitution is silent on a provision, it means it is a prohibition of that provision. What I did find was that when President Monroe was trying to get us involved in Latin America, he tried to get some money sent down there, and the Congress stood on its hind legs and said, this is a matter that's out of your purview. This is a matter for the Congress, and we deny you foreign aid because it's not constitutional. And that is what set Monroe at variance with the Congress. If you know his history, he spent his entire life fighting the Congress over that issue. Nothing has changed. The Constitution of the United States is immutable. I violently disagree with Justice Ginsburg, who says the Constitution is flexible. The Constitution is not flexible. Our founding fathers meant it to be an immutable document that would stand the test of the ages of time. And
unfortunately, Dr. Coleman, when it comes to money and power, the Constitution is just but a speed bump. Just but a speed bump. There's no one around to enforce the Constitution. The word is bandied about a whole lot by the lawyer class, but nothing is put to a real constitutional test. And the real constitutional test is that Congress has all the power, because it has the power of the purse. And the Congress is a rubber stamp to what bigger powers want. And that's our current condition. It's a painful condition to be in, but that is our current condition. I am sorry, Dr. Coleman, did not get much better.
Foil people like William Jefferson Clinton and Roosevelt and every other dictator that is going to follow, unless we stand up and take back our states' rights.
All right, so that's where we are. The states have to take back their states' rights, and there's not a state in the Union that is of any condition to be able to do that or to want that. And hey, Kim, sorry I wasn't in the chat. Florida has signed, at least as last state, on March 3rd by a senator who was seen as anti-slavery in Europe. But biggest shipper of slaves, probably owned majority of slave ships, probably. Most foreign aid wasn't even true aid, as Doge showed. It was fake nonprofits. Yeah, all that money was dished out and shared with a lot of people that just robbed our country blind. Yeah. And yes, Kim Shock 44, thanks for chatting in the comments section. If anybody has any questions or statements, this is where we are right now. And it's a frustrating place to be, honestly. It is a very, very frustrating place to be. Our Congress is a bought and paid for institution. And I have great faith that Trump is doing what the Q plan put forth, because that's how I'm seeing it. And man, there are some videos that are coming across the internets that are showing Israel getting just stomped. And Israel is still doing the same thing, flying bombing raids to Iran's capital, Tehran. And Iran is minimum the size of 2 Texases or 2 Alaskas. It's just a huge country with a lot of desert and just hard to get to. So I truly feel, and this may be my ignorance and I'm just putting it out there, that the plan is happening and that this is just the slow way to get the United States out of the Middle East and to really get Israel out of the Middle East. And it's just a slow, painful process. The last war was a 12-day war that really kicked the heck out of Israel. And this bombing operation right now in Israel is, I think, since Saturday. So we're going on day 6, 7. And today, last night, I mean, they had rough times. So I hope and pray that the ship is righting itself and that the operation is going as planned. We're stopping here with Dr. Coleman, picking him back up Monday, and then taking our direction on Monday wherever we go. The Breadcrumbs Project is always following the crumbs, big crumbs, small crumbs, and right now this is a pretty big crumb. Something I found out that I needed to know from Dr. Coleman was that Kuwait was a creation of the City of London. Did not know that. And so what Kuwait has been saying has been happening to it sounds an awfully good bit like something coming from the City of London and MI6. So yes, we will pick things back up on Monday. This has been an enlightening series for me. I hope it's been that way for you too. And again, have a great weekend, and I will see you guys back next week. Leave a comment in the comment section, and I will definitely check on comments over the weekend. All right, thanks y'all.